In this demonstration, we're going to cover forms, the forms wizard, and how to collect reporting from the forms that we create. Just to give a little high-level overview, we often talk about pushing content out to the right people, managing content, making sure the right people get it, which is very, very important. But more important to that is the information these users are sending back to you. So if you think about the user experience, really starting with the action they take, whether it be a click of a mouse, or what record did they read, or what form they filled out. That's really the most valuable collection of data. Here you see a number of different forms. Now, a form is really made up of three distinctly different actions. And you'll see these tabs up across the top here: General, Workflow, and Processing. Now, the reason we've architected it this way is that the form itself has to collect fields. And here you see all of these little scripts that will present to the user the title field in this case, or first name, middle name, last name. Now, we'll explain this because I know this looks a little difficult to manage, but it has to be done in this way. Fortunately, we have tools that make this very easy, which we'll explain later. But we need to collect these fields, and when we collect it, we need to thank the user for that submission. Now, just to help demystify this script here so you're not too intimidated by it, this form, that particular form, looks like this. And by the way, on the right-hand side here, if you click on Preview, you'll be able to see your form as it's going to be seen on the front of the site. So there's our title, first name, middle name. So just to kind of explain how to format these things. For example, if I wanted to bold the title tag of my form and I wanted to submit that, of course the preview of that, which is found right here, will show a bolded title tag. So as you can see, there's the formatting, but then there are the fields that we need to use to collect the data from the user. And here's why. Here's what we're doing with it. This form, when we set it up, someone's going to fill it out. We're going to say thank you. We can even personalize that. If we want to put in, first name, thank you, Bob, for your form. So we can make a really nice message here for this user after they've submitted it. Now, also, we might want to, when they submit that form, redirect them to another place. So instead of saying thank you, we might want to take them maybe to another form. So it might be, a whole series of forms. Another note on forms is that a form might not just be a simple one-page form. We might have some onboarding wizard, where we take the user through step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, where there's a real massive collection of data that's occurring when we're asking this person questions. It might be a configurator. For example, in step 1, if you're over 18 years of age, you might go directly to step 3. So there might be conditional logic between these forms. So as you can see, a form could be something very simple like contact us or request a day off, or it could be, configure your own product, walking through these steps. So, forms are not to be underestimated. They can do a lot of things. Okay. So a user submits the form, we say thank you, and then we go to tab 2, which is, now that the form has been filled out, what do we do with this information? Maybe we want to route it to someone. Maybe we want to send it to someone for approval, like this gentleman here. And we want to make sure that the subject line of all incoming emails that he receives say, incoming lead or whatever. That way we can notify that user easily. And we can include all of the data that the user filled out in the email if we want to. We may wish to take that to a whole nother level, meaning we might need to send that email to the user, but we're asking for his approval, which means that he has to approve that incoming request before it can move on to the next step, that sort of thing. And there's different levels of this. For example, vulnerable security means that we're going to embed the data and the approval button right within the HTML email. Or we may want to do it more securely where, John gets an email that says, John, click here to log in to see the request that just came in, where you can approve it within a secure, area. So that's why we have all these options here. Now, we will set these forms up for you. We will make sure they operate, for you. but you can do them yourself, and I'll get to that in a minute, where it is easy to do, believe it or not. Okay, so the workflow might be more involved than just sending it to John. We might need to send this workflow through a workflow process that you defined at your organization that goes to Bob for approval, and then when Bob approves it, it goes to Susan for approval, and so on. So the multiple workflow steps would be managed over here in our workflow configurator. And just to explain that a little bit, we'll call this a multi-step workflow, wherein someone submits that record and it will go to Bob for approval. When Bob approves it, it goes to Susan. When Susan approves it, it goes to Tim for final approval, whatever. And it's not that easy to set up, as you see here, but we've just created this multi-step workflow. So there's a symbiosis that exists between the workflow rules and the form that we're collecting. So this form, when submitted, might route through that new multi-step workflow we just created. So it's important to kind of separate church and state from the workflow rules around the form. That way, you can change the workflow for any form. We can change the users involved in any workflow very simply. So that form is now submitted through those people. Now the final step of this process, and this is really mostly for technology people, little boring for the rest of us. The data that we've collected in that form, what do we want to do with it? So we can save it in Centralpoint. Now we don't have to, and that's why we have this option. This might be secure, compliant data that we cannot store in Centralpoint for some reason by law, maybe PCI compliance or HIPAA compliance, fine. So we just need to pass that information on somewhere else. But most times we will collect that data, and the reason for that is that later you might want to see reporting as to how many different forms came in for this, that, or the other. But we also have the ability to take that data and send it to another database. So this might be a database that lives at your facility. We might need to update that user profile in some way. We might need to feed a web service. We might need to encrypt fields within that email that's being sent. We might need to SFTP that data somewhere else. What we're trying to say is that because these forms can feed so many different systems on the back end, and by the way, that one submission, there might be 10, 15 fields. 2 fields might go to the database, 5 fields might go to accounting. So we might need to parse out a lot of that collected data and do a lot of things with it. Again, this is not for the faint of heart. This is for mostly the IT developers who need to integrate that activity with your back office. So that's a huge piece there. You won't see that in other platforms. That kind of makes us the lipstick on the pig, where we can collect a lot of this incoming data and feed the back offices that need to be fed. So as we set up our form and we track our results, we have a receipt for every submission that came in. What computer address it came from, all of the fields that they filled out. You'll notice this is a different format than you're used to seeing maybe. This is XML format. This is a good format because with this format it means that it's extensible. We can feed other systems. We can report on it very easily. So behind the scenes, for whatever it's worth, that is how we're saving it. Now, another interesting point is that we might have, for some of these forms, we might want to pass the data, not just to another database. We might want to pass that data through a filter of some sort where we can create a document. And let me show you what I mean. Okay. All right, so in this case, here is a form that somebody's filling out. I'm just going to put in Tim Smith at ABC Company. T. Smith at abc.com. Okay. Now, by the way, forms, we even have tools that allow us to let someone sign with their mouse. If I wanted to have Tim Smith sign this off, he could. And when he submits this, here's what's happening. The data that we're collecting, we might route it through workflow. We might route it through a filter known as a template. And the output of that document is maybe a sales contract, like this agreement between ABC Company and Tim Smith and this other group here and blah, 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 blah. So what we're trying to say here is that document management is often thought of as storing Word documents, storing PDF files, which we definitely can do. But you really have to step back and look at document management from the standpoint of we need tools where people, self-service tools, where as Tim fills that information out, well, we know that we're using the latest, greatest legal language from our contracting department, for an example. And that way, you know, it just minimizes risk and liability. Here's what happened on the back end with that form. This form here, these are the fields I filled out. It did not have any workflow. And it passed through this filter found here that allowed us to map and define what the output looks like. And right now I'm opening up a Word. Okay, there it is right there. So basically, this is a document, a Word document, that we can now populate with your content. We can even populate it with dynamic content. And all of these little fields here, basically, this is a translation tool. It's taking the form that was submitted, passing it through this filter, and then saving it on the other end. So just to show you what that looks like, here we have our form. Here are the results of that form. And if I sort to see the one that I just filled out at 8:04 a.m., here's all the crazy data that came in. And here's the document that was created on the other end, the Tim Smith contract. So forms are very, very powerful. It allows us to dynamically create documents, feed other back office systems. Again, we do not expect the lay, content management user every day to be able to get in here and create forms like that. That's going to require your production management team, likely your analyst. Now, I will say this. We do expect the templates, like if you do have contracts and you do have records that you want to create dynamically, like I just showed you, we would expect you to manage your own template and upload it. The day-to-day management of how you want your contract to read or how you want your brochure to read, we would expect that to be your responsibility so that you update that where all of the little form fields show up in the right location. We can't be responsible for the layout of your documentation. So that much I will stress on the documentation. But this is clearly a big deal because we're routing and triaging all of the incoming information into your environment, managing the workflow, getting approvals, feeding your back office. This is definitely an IT integration thing. Now, I will say, though, that for the people who want to create a form easily, we offer this tool here called a Forms Wizard, also found under the Forms section. And I'm going to create a new sample form. And it allows me to walk, these are all design settings. Like if I want all of my form fields to look a certain way, I can define that. We just have these default settings to make it easy. So I'm going to create a new sample form. And in my form, I'm going to say I want 2 text boxes, I want a date field, and I want a file upload. Now, the reason we have this field, this window here, is that we need to name each one of these fields. So for my text boxes, I might have first name, I might have phone number, I might have enter, today's date. For this one, I might have upload a photo. Now, the reason this is nice is that I might say, look, first name and phone number will be required. Now, first name is just a text box, so there's really no way to guarantee that what they're putting in is accurate. But for the phone number, we can validate and say, look, that phone number needs to be in a phone number format, and we're not going to accept anything else because if they miss a number, we can't do anything with that. So basically, and the reason we have these 2 fields, if you're curious, is that sometimes we need to give a kind of a given name and then a nickname to these fields because later we're going to be integrating these fields with maybe your back office system. So maybe in your CRM system, this is called, FNAME1, just as an example. This makes it very easy for us to tie that data into those back office systems later. Again, a little boring. Next step, and I'm hitting the little next button down here. It's saying, all right, you have 4 fields for this form. basically, how do you want to rack this thing up? Do you just want one linear form where it's just field, 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 field? Do you want 2 or 3 or 4 columns where we kind of spread the fields out on the page? If for this example, I'm just going to say I want 4 rows of my form. And for each column here, or for each row, I want to have 1 field. So basically, it's going to let me say I want my first name, then my phone number field presented, then I want today's date, and then I want my upload photo. So I'm going to hit next. So that's generally what my form is going to look like. It's just showing here that these are required fields. So those will be the validation error messages should someone fail to fill it out. And I'm going to say next. Now, this form, when someone fills it out, thank you very much for filling out our form. And here you could, do a lot of neat things, huge welcome message, or be sure to check on our other things, or, So you can make this fancy, and this is what the person will see once they filled out that form. And I'll just make this, for the demo purposes, I'll make this red. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, when the form is submitted, do we, by default we'll say, do we want to save the results of these forms? Well, yes, absolutely, because we're going to want to report on, who filled it out. Would you like to include these fields and data collected into a module? This is kind of advanced, but if we wanted to take certain fields and populate one of your modules with it, we could. And again, this might be a tool that our analysts use to create your form. Would you like to email a confirmation to someone once this form is submitted? Yes. Let's send a confirmation to info@Oxcyon. Let's make sure the subject line says incoming new form filled out. Does the email address the notification will be sent from? Okay, so the email that's sent will be sent from alerts@yourcompany.com. It's just so you can identify all the incoming leads from the website or something. Do you want to copy someone on the incoming email? Now, this thing that comes in, do we want to deal with the whole approval process? If so, who do we send it to? And how are they going to approve it? So the bottom line is we're just going to stick with this and just say, okay, here we have a new form. Now, at the last step of my wizard, it says your new sample form has been created. View the preview to this form. So here's our form right here, ready to go. And I want to point your attention to this. So this little thing here, this becomes the reference to that form. And this is called a CP script, or an object-oriented reference. So, and by the way, all that crazy code that you saw earlier, this wizard created all of that for you. So all of the needed must-haves for the back end were built in, including the workflow and the email and all that stuff. So this thing is a time saver, huge. You don't need to know how to, make these little scripts, and most importantly, it's error-free. So you won't, if you forget to validate something, it'll stop you. So love the Forms wizard. Okay, so now let's test out our new form. And I'm going to create my new sample form. I'll call it 1, 2, 3. And I'll put it right here. Let's see if I spelled that right. Okay. And so what I've done is I've copied, that little object, that object I copied earlier. I'm pasting it into a regular web page. And I'm going to put this web page under the example section of my site and submitting it. So there it is. Now, if I go to the site and I go under examples and I have my new sample form 1, 2, 3, let's go ahead and fill it out. I'm just going to say Bob, phone number, today's date. You'll see that I have the date picker here. Very nice. If I wanted to upload an image, I could do that. So I'm just going to upload whatever this image is here. This picture of some Dr. Frankenstein. And I'm going to submit that. Okay, so it's going to return and say, thank you very much for filling out our form. There's the welcome message we saw earlier. You may have just heard the incoming email that just came in. So we just received an email here that the image and the fields came in, with the subject line, incoming new form filled out, just to prove that the workflow works. But there's something else. We're going to do this again. We're going to fill this out one more time. There's a reason for this. And I'm going to say Susan 555 555 5555. Today's date, whatever. Upload. So now that we've set this up, we can now track this stuff. Again, I'm going to put up my Frankenstein picture. Okay, submit that. All right, so now we should hear another incoming alert here. So now we have two leads that came in. Should hear it in just a moment. It's coming in. All right. While we're waiting for that to cook, let's go and see what's going on in the back end. So that form that we set up has the ability to now show all of the different results. Now, normally when we're capturing these results, you don't want to see all the crazy records here like this. You know, you want to see nice reports. You want to see clean reports. So as we created that form, we also created a report called New Sample Form Data Source. Let's see if that's the one, and it is. And as you see here, we're recording all of this data. So Bob, Susan, what day they filled it out, that too is a object. That's a reference point. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put that under I'm going to put results of all forms. And I'm going to put this under the example section. There's our little thing I just pasted in there, which means the report will appear there. And let me just call this 1, 2, 3, 4, just to make sure I don't have another record with the same name. Okay, so we're going to go back to the site, go under our examples, and then we have, let me just scroll down here, we have results of all forms 1, 2, 3, 4. So this becomes a live report that allows me to sort, search. You know, if I wanted to search this report for all Bobs that filled out the report, there's Bob. If I wanted to search a report for all Susans, there's Susan. If I wanted to see if there were a lot of results, I might want to see all of them or only a certain amount per page. I might even want to have the ability to extract that data. You know, let's say I want to pull all the leads off of our site periodically for some, you know, reporting need that somebody has. I can extract that out into XML format. So now this reporting, by the way, that's just kind of our out-of-the-box reporting. We understand that everybody has different needs in reporting. We encourage you to watch the video on data sources, because data sources is really where all this reporting is taking place. But basically, this report right here is doing some fancy work here, so that, you know, this is all the results of that form, and this is the formatting of that report as it spits out. Now, just to again show you that we have tools to make this stuff easy, because I know when you look at this stuff, you think, well, boy, I could never figure this out. And it's pretty complex stuff, really, when you think about it. That's what we're here for. That's what our analysts are here for. That's what your production manager's here for. But let's assume you want to get involved in some of this stuff, and you want to build I want to show the results of our new form 1, 2, 3. Now, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do, or to summon SQL or data sources and things like this. So you'll notice these little links here, and it's going to say, all right, what form do we want to work with here? Well, we want to work with our sample form. Well, maybe we called it something different. We did. We called it, I think I gave it a name. Forgive me. Want to find the form. It's got some numbers in it. And here's our form here. New sample form in the list. That's the new one we created. Forgive me. It's we have a lot of examples here in the demo. My apologies. Okay, so this little wizard's saying, okay, well, here are the fields that you created in your form. Click here to generate all of the necessary crazy business to render this report. Well, only a developer would know how to do this stuff, so this tool is very powerful. This comment here, and I'll tell you where to put it in the select command. I'm just going to slide this over. So I'm going to put that there. I don't know what that is, but clearly it's pulling all the results of that form. And then when it comes to the formatting, it's going to say, all right, for the formatting options, use raw HTML, and let's copy and paste this in the template content. So let's kind of follow the instructions here, see if it works. Template content. And down here it says for the item content, just copy and paste this stuff. So I'm going to close that out. Item content. So the name of my new report, which is a live report, is called Results of All Forms 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go ahead and submit that. Let's search for it. Results. Okay, here it is right there. Results of All Forms 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's our live report right there. And just to show you how you do have some control, you have control over this stuff. Let's say I didn't want upload photo in my report because it's, I don't need to see image paths of things like that. It doesn't pertain to the people who want to see it. So I'm going to say let's take out the upload photo from there, and let's take out the upload photo from here. Again, I don't know how to do code, but I know how to remove what I don't want. And I'm now going to look at my preview, and look, we have a new report that does not include the image path, whatever. Now, when it comes to reporting like this from all these forms, of course, these are typically for private access only. So when we take that form, we're not going to go put it on the website. We're going to take that form and say, look, private results of forms, I might put that under the same area, example. But this time I'm going to tag it private, or it only pertains to the intranet. So the reporting piece of this, the back-end business intelligence, of course, is going to be very private. So I can't just post that to the internet. So in this case, this kind of illustrates how we take the results of that form. You'll notice that we do not have that private access, thing under the public view. But if I sign in under a private view, it will welcome me. I will be able to see the results here somewhere. Just a minute. Okay, and somewhere here is my results of the private view. You kind of get the gist here, whatever the reporting is. It was a little farther down the screen, and my demo site had too many options there to select from. Let me just see. Actually, let me do this. Examples, one of the benefits of mobile. Examples, and then we have down here there we are, private results of forms. One of the benefits there of a responsive design. So here's my private report. So that's typically how this stuff would look. Additionally, that could become part of a much larger composite view, not to muddy the waters, but had we given people access to like a personalized dashboard, meaning the CEO logs in and they want to see, immediately all the leads that came in, or show me, fresh out of the oven, all the activity here, there, or the other. By the way, that grid view and reporting, and I won't steal the thunder from the data source overview, but the reporting can be output any way you want. As I stressed, the report that we output is just kind of a template or standard. We can do some fancy reporting in terms of charting and graphing and all that stuff, brought to us by our good friends at jQuery, or our support of jQuery, that allows us to output some really nice things. So, just to recap, forms are important. They track all this incoming information. Another side note is that that form may have been an SSL-based form or secure form. Okay, and again, separation of church and state. That form, if it were SSL, we would go and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. Let's pretend like this form here needs to be SSL. I'm going to copy my form. I'm going to go put it under a navigation item. And I'll say my SSL form. Copy my form in there. Put it under examples for an example. But the page itself needs to have a HTTPS wrapper. So basically that means that anything found within that form can only be served under a digital certificate or HTTPS prefix, which allows you to manage all sorts of forms, payment forms, secure forms, whatever the case might be. So we do address that. It's just addressed a little differently because the form is an object, and the object must live inside of a container which is secure. So a lot of this, again, might be way overkill for a lot of the users who just say, look, I don't care how this works, just set up a form for me and make it work. One thing I do think you will find interest in are these templates, and I think that when you look at your agreements, your contracts, your invoices, whatever it is you want to have dynamically rendered, you'd likely want to open those things up in Word, design them in Word, because only you know what you want the output to like. We can't really be expected to stylize all of your documentation. So look at the Word stuff and highlight the areas in your Word document where you want those dynamic things to take place. Basically those fields people are filling out. We can add those too for you, but the formatting of that document we'd like you to do. And we're seeing a lot of clients, since we released that feature, seeing a lot of clients take advantage of that. Another side note on that is that it's not just Word document to PDF or Word document to Word document. Let me explain that a little bit. Word document's easy for people to use. So for you to go and create a Word document template is simple. So we can use that Word document template to output a Word document, a dynamically created Word document or a PDF. In the case that you wanted any of that data to populate a PowerPoint, well, we can take the PowerPoint deck of yours and fill in all the variables, so it's like a unique PowerPoint for every client who fills out the form. And what they're going to get is a link to just their PowerPoint, and of course their name and logo and all their stuff is all built into that. We can do the same thing with Excel spreadsheet. So this is really interesting because the formulas that you create within an Excel spreadsheet, well, take for an example, someone who logs into the site and posts how many hours they've worked in the field this week or this month, and they type it in, and their hourly rate, whatever it is. Well, it'll actually calculate, the outputting document that they download will be the full calculation of, maybe their taxes and their transportation costs and, whatever your calculation is. So Excel is really interesting because Excel as an application can actually do more thinking, more processing than Word or PowerPoint. Again, just a little side note. So if you have any questions, please let us know. But again, to summarize, forms, are responsible for triaging and collecting a lot of the user experience. I don't say all of the user experience because some of that experience relates to surveys they're taking or, comments they're making against certain bloggers' articles or tests that they've taken in terms of, learning a new task or a new function. How do we get those certificates of completion? So user experience really covers all of these things, but forms is probably 80%, 90% of all of the incoming information. This also touches on gamification because you might want to grade your users based on how much input they're giving you. If they fill out forms, we might say, okay, for all people who are out there who submit a form, we're going to give you 5 points for every form you submit. Whatever that might mean. It might mean employee incentives. It might mean customer incentives. So we can now reward people or create a point system in which to incentivize users to participate. So again, I kind of coloring outside the lines here and going a little deeper than I need to, but I just wanted to round out why the incoming collection of this data is so important, why the integration with your back office is necessary, and if you have any questions, please contact your analyst or production manager. Thank you.